welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'm so grateful to have you here, sharing in this space of growth, healing, and transformation. If you've already subscribed to Loving Everything, thank you for being a part of this beautiful community. Your support means so much, and together, we're creating a space where love in all its forms can be explored and embraced. As you listen to this episode, if it resonates with you, I invite you to like the video and share it with anyone who might benefit from the insights we're diving into today. These conversations are all about expanding our capacity to love ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And if you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to explore my other episodes where we journey into love's deepest, most unconditional forms. Each one is an invitation to reconnect with the parts of yourself that are waiting to be seen, healed, and loved. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. Hi, Christine Marie.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to dive deep. We tend to do that. So here we go. Can you share your story of surviving 9 collapsed lungs and a near-death experience? And how did these events shape your journey to today?
Yeah, so, wow, where do I start with that?
I know. We're just jumping in.
I know. Well, it happened when my first episode of a collapsed lung happened when I was 9 years old. And I woke up one morning with a really extreme back pain and stomach ache and essentially was rushed to the hospital. And they had to do emergency surgery on me or else it would have been fatal. And at 9 years old, of course, at that time, I didn't really know what was happening. And as I was having this sensation of fear and disbelief and honestly, I would probably say extreme confusion and hopelessness at that time.
And pain.
And lots of pain. Yeah, I had this experience where when I was nearing my my most extreme point of pain in that experience, I had all of these guardian angels come around me. And when I close my eyes, I can actually see them here right now. And there are all these different colors and, they sparkle and they have these frequencies of love and protection. And when I woke up from that near-death experience, I had really kind of thought that what those angels were actually the nurses that were taking care of me. And so that's why I decided at that point, I was like, oh, I want to become a nurse because I want to be the protecting, loving, angel, essentially, that saved me. And that's why I went on to actually go to nursing school and become an RN and practice that for about 5 years up until the work that I do now. But that was really what woke me up to my connection with my guides. And that's something that I had even before that incident. But I believe for me I was at that age to where I could actually maybe understand more of like the difference between 5D and 3D reality. Not to be able to intellectualize it, but to question it. To question my reality, to question that my imaginary friends growing up weren't just imaginary, but they were actually protectors and guardians that actually, I feel, saved my life many times when I was growing up in an extreme childhood abusive home. And I believe that is the reason why I survived today.
I agree with you. What was it like growing up in a family affected by poverty, addiction, and mental illness?
Well, as much healing work as I've done, it still brings me to tears to think about that little girl that endured so much, that survived so much. And I feel like up until about 7 years ago, when my awakening journey actually began, my healing journey began, I would say I was very much in denial as to what had transpired in my childhood. I didn't really know the abuse that I experienced was abuse. I didn't really understand that, even at like 24 years old.
Wow.
And
I didn't either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild, right? It's the way in which our brains protect ourselves.
And it was super normalized. Like it was how things were.
Yeah.
You didn't know any different,
No.
really. Yeah.
No.
Like you just were making it work. You were making it work.
Yeah, and I was in...
Until it didn't work.
Well, yes. Until I found myself in an abusive relationship in college. That really opened my eyes to, well, how am I here?
Yeah.
Why did I fall
happen?
into this? And then when I went to go actually seek help for understanding all of that, that's when it was illuminated to me of like, okay, this is a pattern that my little girl recognizes. This is what she thinks love is.
Yeah.
And so, and so that woke me up to, that was just like the first, layer of it all. And I feel like up until that point, I was living like deep into victimhood consciousness. Not just, from childhood, but in everything in my life. Like, why am I in a job I don't like? Why am I unhappy? Why this? Why that? Why me? Was like the question. And it wasn't until I was able to really see through the illusion of actually that I chose to be born into this life. I chose to be born with a mother with schizophrenia and a father who is addicted to heroin in order to heal my family lineage, in order to awaken into the medicine woman that I am today, in order to help heal others, by first healing myself, always. And so that turn of seeing how life was happening for me, not to me, was the permission slip that I needed to continue on my path with determination, perseverance, and just a sense of, wow, I'm here for a reason. It's by no mistake. I fucking belong here. And I didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about me on an ego level. This is so much more. Not to mention karmic ties and all of that, right? So now I really share with, those that I work with, and even, still parts of me that sometimes find life really challenging of like, okay, where's the opportunity and the lesson in this for me? And how can I use that as fire to grow and to evolve and to make better change within myself and in the communities that I serve? Does that resonate?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I first met you, I think for me, some of the things that you are working towards or have worked towards or are working towards with others reflects some of my own work. And so I just get excited when, I don't know about you, but I get excited when I meet other people who are on the same path. It can be lonely at times. And so it's just really wonderful to hear somebody else who is so aligned. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's refreshing to find someone that speaks the same language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me excited. If you could change, oh wait, sorry, I jumped ahead. Can you describe a childhood memory that captures the challenges or resilience you experienced during those times? Those times.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was checking the time and then also trying to finish my sentence.
One particular memory that came up for me actually during my dieta when I was in Peru in October, I sat with a plant spirit that supports in helping heal the heart.
What?
Bobinsana.
Oh, I haven't heard of it. Bobinsana?
Bobinsana, yeah.
Bobinsana.
She's a feminine plant spirit that really helps with grief and loss and creativity. And I'd been wanting to work with her for a long time, and I finally got the opportunity to. And yeah, it's a rigorous process doing a dieta. I mean, for me, it was with the tribe that I sat in. It was, a week of fasting, a week of no talking, no nothing. Essentially, you could play music, you could write, or you could meditate, do yoga, walk, but you can't eat or engage with others. And so really, like, you're there to just marry the plant that you are consuming on a daily basis.
Wow.
So there's nothing between you and the plant spirit.
That is such discipline.
Yes, it was so hard. And also kind of not at the same time.
It was liberating.
It was liberating, and what transpired from it was, about 5 days into the week fast, that was when I started to feel like fucking hungry.
Yeah.
And I knew this was coming. Like, I could sense it even before I went on my journey, that it would bring up the malnourishment and the lack of food in the home that I had when I was growing up. And so, again, seeing things as an opportunity, I'm like, this isn't a punishment. Absolutely not. This is an opportunity to really heal that wound, because it still shows up in my life on a day-to-day
Of course it does.
basis. Bless
Survival.
you. Yes, right. Mm-hmm. Yes. So.
And scarcity, right? Mm-hmm. Any wounding around scarcity.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So one memory that came through in my dieta that I'm still integrating and processing is when I was about 4 years old. My sister was 5. We go into the kitchen to have something for breakfast, and we literally open up all of the cupboards. We crawl on top of the counters, open up all the high cupboards, open up the refrigerator, and there was nothing left besides like a tub of sugar and like a little jar of sprinkles, like if you wanted to bake something or whatever. And so my sister and I both grabbed spoons and a bowl, and we had sprinkles and sugar for breakfast. And my father was at work. My mother, at the time, she wasn't very present, engaged. She was kind of off in her own world. And so, yeah, that is what we ate. And this would be after like days without food, like coming home, hoping that Dad came home from work and he had filled the cupboards, which he didn't. He would spend it on alcohol or drugs or whatever he could to support himself and his addiction. And so when I was processing that memory in Peru a couple months ago, I mean, I cried, I grieved, I was like, I just went through the process of feeling the pain, which I really try to anytime something comes up, because I know if I resist it, it's just going to keep coming. And so... and
usually louder.
Yes. And yeah, more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in one of my ceremonies, I had this vision of, okay, well, I'm here to create a new story for myself, because part of the memoir that I'm working on right now is really about how to free oneself from victimhood and stand into their power. And I'm like, okay, well, I can create a new reality. I can accept and not deny what happened, but I don't have to live by that story anymore. And so in my journey, I imagined the entire cupboard and the refrigerator filled with all the most nutritious foods and, you know, teas and anything that I could have possibly wanted as a child. And, like, you know, allowed my little girl to, like, take whatever she wanted. It was hers to have. And that was such a soothing balm for her and for me, even at this age.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
If you could change one thing about your parents or how you were raised, what would it be and why?
I'm already getting emotional. You know, it's hard because I wish that the family system could be different, absolutely. And I know it was as meant to be as it was. So on, like, a human level, it's like, oh yeah, I wish I grew up with a mother who was present, a father who was kind and loving, and, you know, I wish that we had food on the table. I wish that we didn't get evicted from our apartment. I wish that I could have grown up with parents that really saw me and understood me. And as I am in the process of reparenting myself, remothering myself, refathering myself, I mean, what a blessing. What a gift that is. And so, yes, my human self does wish at times it were different, but the opportunity that I get to be that mother, that father figure for myself that I wanted has given me so much that I wouldn't want to take away. So I don't think I would change anything. I think it was meant to be exactly how it was.
What do you think are some of the things that what are some of the life lessons that you have gleaned from that experience? What do you think that it's taught you?
With my father particularly, is how to not abuse power. That's it, plain and simple. How to not abuse power. And my mother, unconditional love. Because though despite my mother's inability to show love on a I would say on a non-physical level, whenever I feel into the love that was there, if I can really get myself to as a child, I know, like, it's unconditional. And now we have a relationship and it's a beautiful one. And oh my gosh, she just loves me so much. And I don't need to be or do anything. Like, she just loves me for me. And that's really beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot to overcome.
Yeah.
Okay. How did your near-death experience at age 9 unveil your gifts as a healer?
Well, like we talked about in the beginning, you know, I was really running away from my pain in my childhood without really even noticing that I was doing it. And that looked like partying, alcohol, weed, boys that weren't actually, you know, and there for my best interest. And I feel like once I started to wake up to the pain that I had experienced in childhood, I also was able to wake up to the gifts that I had. Because if you suppress something from a certain age, say at 5 years old, something bad happened, well, you're really kind of suppressing everything else around that time, you know? I mean, not every memory, but a lot of, like, the positive, a lot of the ways in which I survived being connected to my guides, like, I could not remember that because I couldn't remember the trauma. And so as I started to awaken to the trauma, I woke to my connection to my guides again. And then I just started to maintain a connection with them, because I feel like in this world, one of our biggest traumas is disconnection.
For sure.
From ourselves, from each other, from nature, from
For sure.
everything, from source.
From source.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
That's why everyone feels lost.
Yes, right.
Especially right now.
Right.
Especially if they don't know how to ground.
Yes.
Especially if they don't know how to run their energy or clear their energy or protect themselves. Yeah.
Oh, I got the chills. Yes.
Yeah, it's tough right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's testing, everyone. Mm-hmm. Including those who have been doing the work longer.
I think it tests us more in a way, because it's like, are you really, like, are you still here? Are you still moving forward? Are you still...
And can you lead by example?
Exactly.
Yeah. Can you show others?
Mm-hmm. Can you embody the learnings that you've
learned so that others can learn from you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
I'm with you, girl.
Yeah. So awakening to my guides was the first step to really understanding my gifts, and then starting from there and developing that relationship then allowed me to really open up my channels to help others develop their relationship with their guides, as well as bring healing from that source energy to and through me as a conduit to those that I support.
Mm-hmm. What were the relationships you witnessed as a child, and how did they influence your perspective on connection and healing?
Ooh. Oh, that's hard. One thing, actually, I went to yoga this morning, and I had a feeling come through, followed by some tears around, like, I have 4 sisters, and we were all split up throughout our family system because of one getting, like, going to foster care, one getting adopted, one, getting into trouble, needing to go away. And so my connection to sisterhood was fragmented. And I had...
your relationship to your family was fragmented.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And so, I mean, that's one piece. And my sister, who's about 18 months older than me, we were pretty close because we helped each other when we were younger survive, right? Her being the older sister, I would say she protected me more. And yet, though she grew up with a lot of trouble. And that really fragmented our family even more. I mean, it was very challenging because we were raised by my aunt and uncle who were trying to do the best they could for us, and yet, it was just another dysfunctional family system in different ways. And so I would say in many of the relationships I had in my family, it was fragmented. It was I would say I felt really alone, like, all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about now?
When loneliness comes, it requires me to ask myself, how connected do I feel to myself? How connected do I feel to my guides? How connected do I feel to my partner? It's very different. It's a very different feel. And if there is a feeling of loneliness that comes, I journey back to those parts, those days where I did feel lonely as a little girl, and I become that, again, the divine mother, divine father, higher self that she needed back then. And I hold her, and I tell her I love her, and I tell her she's not alone, and I call on her guides to surround her and me, and that usually takes care of it.
It's pretty profound when you learn inner child work. It's pretty profound, especially if you have a background of trauma and abuse. It's, for me, I think, the missing piece. If you start to understand the energetics of that,
Yeah.
and you start to do the work around traveling back and reparenting, learning forgiveness in that moment, learning whatever the lesson it was, learning, throwing compassion and love at it in a way that you weren't able to do because you were too young or someone didn't do for you. And when you learn that, it really starts to powerfully shift your perspective. It's the only way through, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I mean, you know, as I get older, I recognize like we're all kind of on the rainbow spectrum of how much trauma and abuse we've all overcome. And some people are very fortunate that they have had an easier path. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, at least from my perspective, anyone that has severe trauma and abuse, that is the only repairing I can see that really is truly effective and lasting.
And it's like a lifetime of work. You know,
it is.
I had a client once. It was
and
like,
it's not about perfection. It's literally just about soothing.
Over and over and over again. It's depending upon how deep the wound is, you know. Like I had a client that I was working with for about 1.5 years, and we were going to do an inner child journey, and he goes, you know, I feel like I've healed that. Like I feel like I've journeyed back to that part, and you know, and I'm like,
just done.
Yeah, and I'm like, why don't we just give it a try? And like, whew,
so much stuff.
So many layers.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, because you also have to provide a space, and this can't happen all the time in your life. You have to be in a place in your life where you feel safe.
Yes.
In order to be able to access that healing. And life is not just, you know, especially the background of trauma and abuse. It can be an emotional roller coaster until you learn proper boundaries, safe boundaries, appropriate boundaries for yourself, healthy boundaries for yourself. But in addition to that, you also have to have safety. You have to have a built-in sense of safety, either with another person or your home environment or what's going on in your life. And so healing doesn't always happen. And it can only happen when there's space for it, and you don't always have the space or the time. So accessing that is multi-layered, because as soon as you think you've gotten to the bottom of it, then yes, you got to the bottom of whatever that was, but then there's like stuff underneath that, right? That contributed to where that was. And it's just kind of like peeling back, or the layers of the onion are unraveling. It's like a consistent unraveling.
Lucky us, huh?
Yeah, how it's all connected. Yes. In some ways, lucky. I feel I have lived a very full and different path than most people that I know, and that I'm with you 100%. I chose that. It's very clear to me I chose this. There's the orchestration of the events and just the sheer amazement of other people trying to grasp some of the things that I've experienced. Yeah, it's clear to me that it has been a conscious choice of evolution for me to become the person who I am today.
Yeah.
Okay. What motivated you to begin your healing journey? You kind of touched on that, but I feel like there might have been a significant event. You were in the abusive relationship with the person in college?
Yeah, though I left that when
was it physical abuse?
Yes.
Okay.
And verbal, manipulative, gaslight, yeah.
The things.
Yeah,
all the things.
Yeah. I flew out from Michigan to Portland to kind of just start over.
Did you grow up here?
I grew up in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Metro Detroit area.
And then did you know someone here in Portland? How did you end up in Portland?
Oh, I said I want to go to a city. I know nobody.
Really? You just chose Portland out of a hat.
Pretty much. And I was like really drawn to the nature. I was like, okay, it's got nature. And at that time I was a nurse and looking for, an internship. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just apply and see. And it just landed me out here.
Interesting.
And I was like, okay. And it's funny because as I was driving here, I was like, oh, I used to live a couple blocks down that way.
Oh, did you?
That's where I first came here. To live and to work as a bedside nurse. And during that time, I feel like I was making a life for myself.
Yeah.
And about a year and a half.
How old were you?
22, 23?
Okay. Yeah, you were young.
22, 23.
Young
yeah.
20s.
About a year and a half to 2 years into nursing, I was like, okay, this is not for me. And that was at the same time when I was starting to have really bad episodes of depression, to the point where one evening I found myself on the cold bathroom floor of my studio apartment, just really wanting to die.
Yeah.
And that hadn't been the first time that had happened, but it had been years before then. And I stood up. Something told me to stand up. I stood up. I looked in the mirror, and I saw my guides illuminate the space, and I saw them illuminate my eyes, and I was just like, what the fuck? This is not me. This is not me. And I just heard the words go to India, essentially. And at that time, I found myself going to see a spiritual therapist, and kind of starting to unravel the layers of what had happened in that relationship, and then with my childhood, with my father. And then I took 6 months off of work, and I went to backpack Southeast Asia and India, on a spiritual pilgrimage, essentially, to just
You went by
myself.
yourself.
I did. I was, now at that time, I was months, maybe a year went by, I was 25. I turned 25 when I was there, something like that. Yeah. Or 26, yeah, I don't know. And it was wild. It was life-changing in so many ways. I mean, talk about just being with yourself all the time. Really, really meeting those parts of you that you had ran away from, etc. And at that time, too, I was starting to really be serious about writing my first book, which is Breaking Free. And so it gave me the opportunity to focus on that, and that was a huge alchemization of my healing journey, right? I feel like the creative process is such a beautiful transmutation of all of the stuck energy that's inside of us that needs to be heard, loved, and seen. And so writing that book and publishing it was one of my first steps of being wow, honestly, of self-love is what it felt like. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this, but essentially...
You're doing great.
Yeah. Suicide ideation to therapy to India. And then I just started to meet all these spiritual leaders and started to just kind of find my way into healing myself through all these other holistic modalities. And as I was doing that more and more, I realized, I don't need an antidepressant. I don't need anything. I just need to really be courageous enough to be with the parts of myself and the pain that I've been hiding, and to feel safe enough to do that. And anyways, I feel very grateful for that time, because I felt like I learned a lot about myself, and I felt like I met a lot of mentors and healers that taught me how to find my own gifts and my own way through.
Mm-hmm. We have some overlap there.
Mm.
I didn't hike through India, though. Oh my gosh. As you say that, I'm like, damn, you're fucking brave.
With some like eat, pray, love shit, I guess.
Yeah. I was too chicken in that regard. I really wanted to go, when I graduated college, I really wanted to go to Egypt. And my mom said, she said, you're going to go by yourself? And I said, yeah. And she said, over my dead body. And she had such a powerful impact. What she thought and what she cared about still had such a profound impact on me that it stopped me dead in my tracks. I didn't think about it ever again. And I keep saying, I've been saying for like 5 or 8 years, I keep meeting people that like do trips over there. Or, yeah, I have a friend that's living there right now. And I'm like, I should go. Okay.
You should totally go.
I should totally go.
Oh,
that'll be
you
my
can put
own
me in your backpack.
My own eat, pray, love story. Okay. And I kind of replaced it. You know, I did a little bit of a journey this summer. I didn't travel completely alone, but there were times in the travel where I was alone. And, you know, when I went to Capri and Sardinia and all the islands off of Italy this last year, which I'd been wanting to do been trying to make that happen for over 10 years. But yeah, when I finally did that and made that happen, it was kind of a little bit of what you did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's what I'm getting at. I don't feel a huge draw to like plan a trip to Egypt quite yet, but I will get there, I think, someday. What hurdles have you faced on your healing path and how did you overcome them? Your eyes just
I just feel like it's like every week, if I'm being aware, there's always something, you know. I would say one big thing that ultimately ended up changing my life was my feeling of being unlovable and unworthy of healthy love. Because also I didn't really know what that was or felt like, or actually even when I feel like I met men that could be safe, I didn't find that hot enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's like boring.
Yeah, yeah.
So
there's a lot of that going around right now. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that you've like noticed?
women like on social media talking about how that's boring. There's a lot of opinions about how men should act. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, again, I think some of us are used to drama.
For sure.
Like the drama, kind of the chase, kind of being, you know, not so certain about how they feel because it's kind of exciting. Anyway, it keeps our attention, right? So, anywho, I was like single for 7 years. I mean, you know, I casually dated people. I blah blah blah. But I was like, my heart was fucking closed, you know. And I was seeing some men that definitely were emotionally unavailable. And I was like, why do I keep like falling in love with emotionally unavailable men? And then again, I had to turn the mirror towards myself and say, oh, because I'm emotionally unavailable. Right? So I decided to, over like a 2-month period, to check in with myself every new moon. Do I feel ready to date? Do I feel ready to go on the apps? Do I feel ready to put myself out there? And during that time, I was doing like so much shadow work, so much work about, you know, what it feels like to just date myself, fall in love with myself. I mean, you know, I loved to take myself to concerts and to coffee shops all the time, you know, when I was single, but I really like made an effort of learning to get to know who I was and learning to get to know, like, okay, if I were to be dating somebody, this is where I would like want to take them on a date, or I would want them to take me on a date. Anyway, so I just started the process of really consciously like falling in love with myself, and also like telling myself I would say I love you, Christine Marie, at the end of the night before I went to bed, as if like my beloved was saying it to me. And 2 months into that, I was like, okay, I feel like maybe I'll start to just open up the door. Like, just maybe, actually, it was probably a window. I was like, let me just start to peek around to see if there's, anyone I feel interested in. And then I met this guy, Josh, on a Hinge app, and I looked at his profile and I was like, oh, he's cool. Like, he wants to become like a men's coach, and he's into authenticity, and like, it just felt very different than a lot of the men that I was dating before. But I didn't think anything of it at that time, just because I was still being I wanted to just go very slow. And so he wanted to like go on a date, and I was like, well, I'm going actually into an ayahuasca ceremony this weekend, so maybe afterwards. Again, didn't really think anything of it, but during that weekend ayahuasca ceremony, I had this overwhelming sensation of like, oh man, I'm like ready. My heart is fucking open. And then Josh and I had our first, because it was still COVID at the time, we had our first video date that Monday after. And then
You had a video date?
we had a video date. And then now we are engaged and live in a house, have 2 cats, and do ceremony work together. And yeah, and it was really interesting because our first video date, he was so kind and so interested in my life and asking me questions and actually reflecting back to me what he was hearing. I was like, oh, this guy is like really great, like emotional intelligence. And as we started to date, I was like, oh, he feels like secure attachment, which I'm used to avoidant.
Yeah.
And that was freaky at first. And I had to really coach myself of like, girl, like, this is what you've been calling in. Like, don't fuck it up. Like, just, just show up secure. Just don't play games. Yeah, don't sabotage it. And like, I really had to do that hard work. And, here we are. So I'm so grateful, because if it wasn't for all of the healing work that I had done before him, I wouldn't have been ready for him.
Yeah.
He would have been another boring, amazing guy that I would have let pass me by. And I'm so grateful, because he is one of the greatest blessings in my life. Yeah.
Can you explain the role psilocybin healing ceremonies have played in your personal and spiritual transformation?
Oh, that medicine. Sometimes I feel like when I talk about these medicines that come from our Mother Earth, it feels like I'm not doing it enough justice. But I will say that psilocybin, for me, has really allowed me to open up doorways and gateways into my subconscious that I wouldn't otherwise been able to do. Because for me, psilocybin is a really big ally. It's there to support you. Everything that it is showing you, everything that it is guiding you towards, is there because it knows that you are ready to handle it, or otherwise it wouldn't be bothering. And I also feel like something that I have shied away from is really like owning my gifts and owning even my creativity, owning who I am. And I feel like that medicine is a great reminder of, not in an egotistical way, but in a way of being like, you matter. And you have a place to share what is inside of you. And it will and can support the larger collective if you dare to allow yourself to be seen, if you dare to allow yourself to be imperfect. And that's huge, because I feel like for most of my life, I'm like a recovering perfectionist. I don't know if you know anything about that.
I know nothing about that. I didn't just do a post about that literally yesterday.
Oh, I'll have to go look at it. And so, psilocybin like puts a lot of like the beauty into being messy. It shows you how beautiful life is and how humans are when they are messy, when they are imperfect, when they are learning, when they are a student. And that has given me so much more permission to just not feel like I have to put on any sort of face or be any sort of way to appease anybody. Like I can just be authentically me at any given time, and that is so healing.
It is. It's unencumbered. It is the
Yes.
ultimate freedom.
It is the ultimate freedom, and yet it is so challenging.
It is. Conform.
Yeah. Do what I say.
Oh, God. How do you approach healing ancestral and personal traumas, and what advice do you have for others on a similar journey?
Let me sit with this for a moment.
Please do. Take your time. And I can repeat it if you need to.
Will you repeat it for me?
Yeah. It's a complex question. How do you approach healing ancestral and personal traumas? And what advice do you have for others on a similar journey?
I would say I approach it with as much slowness and tenderness as I can with myself and those that I work with. We touched on the word safety. We touched maybe actually not on this, but the nervous system feeling in a more regulated state so that what comes through from a healing process can be received a little bit more fully. So I would say that's the energetic approach I like to take. I like to be mindful of. And I also will say I meet people with where they're at. I do not push. I do not force. I do not, like, there's some encouragement, but there's not a, it's not a race. It's
They're
a spiral
either ready or they're not.
Yeah. And who am I to,
Yeah.
I'm just a conduit. I'm
Totally.
just a hollow bone. So I really try my very best to be that. And also the frequency of love is what I emanate and what I try my best to emanate. And, like putting judgments aside, putting preconceived ideas aside, just really allowing that love to be the energetic source that supports and flowing of the healing process.
How has connecting with your intuition and the greater web of life empowered you?
It honestly sometimes makes me feel like I can do anything.
You can.
I know. And sometimes things feel very impossible.
They do.
And so with connecting with my intuition and connecting with the great web of life, I just feel like I'm supported, I'm guided, I'm protected, and I'm never led astray.
So for somebody who struggles to listen to that, how do you better listen?
I don't think it's so easy. I think for me and what I try to support with those that I serve is to really do a lot of work on building self-trust.
So wise. How old are you?
31.
What is the most profound insight or clarity you've gained about life's path through your healing work?
Wow, these are such powerful questions. And what's funny is I feel like I would have answered these differently like a week ago. You know what I mean? Just based on where I feel like I am in this moment. Love is the medicine. That's it.
I mean, I named myself love, so I'm not gonna disagree with you. You heard it here. Okay.
That was not planned.
No, it wasn't. Okay. How do you wait, did I just ask you this? What are you naturally gifted in, and how do these gifts align with your purpose as a medicine woman?
Well, so I'm a Pisces sun. So
That's right.
yeah. So, you know, traits of Pisces are creative and psychic and
Super psychic.
empathic and compassionate. And so the empathy and compassion that I just naturally have in my bones just will never, ever go away. It only gets obviously more and more as I continue this work.
Yeah.
And so being able to just have empathy for so many people and where they're at in their life and the struggles and the challenges, I believe definitely is a superpower. And growing up, for me, it was like, you're too sensitive, blah, 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 blah. Because I would like cry all the time. Like I just would cry at everything.
Me too.
And, you know, I would get made fun of.
I'm like the opposite. Well, I'm not the opposite of you. I'm like the rest of you. I'm the Pisces rising and moon, and you're the Pisces sun. I can't even imagine us as children.
Oh my God, just crying all the time.
Christine Marie made me cry.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I just like, I used to hate that about myself so much that I would just suppress my true feelings because I just didn't want to be the sensitive person at the party or whatever.
Yep.
And as I awoke to my sensitivities to the spirit world and all of that, I was like, dude, this is a gift. Like, why would I ever want to suppress this? So, yeah.
What do you love doing more than anything else, and how does it bring you joy?
Ooh, writing and dancing. I would say writing and dancing go hand in hand, but writing would be like ultimate.
I love to dance too. How do your creative self-expression and spiritual connection serve as gateways to higher vibrational medicine and wisdom?
I mean, I believe we all are channels for this. And all of our channels are, I would say, wired differently, based on our own unique blueprint and you know, kind of what we're all here to do on an individual level. And so being, again, a channel, a conduit, a hollow bone for the wisdom, the source, that creative flow energy to come through me, and getting my ego out of the way and just allowing what wants to be birthed with writing or with, you know, talking or whatever you want to say, as my creative self-expression. It just flows, and I have learned to just trust it, to not question it, to not, I mean, sometimes I feel like I know after this conversation, I'm going to feel like I don't even remember what we talked about because I'm so in the flow.
Does. Yeah.
You know, so
nobody does.
Yeah.
I'm always like, was it good? Well, not so much anymore. But at the beginning, when I first would do podcasts, I would totally be so present. Not to say that that's changed, but I'm much more at ease. I'm much more at ease. Back when I first began, I was admittedly super nervous, and so like you're thinking of like what they're saying and what the camera's doing and what, you know, like a lot of it now is kind of in the background, kind of like I don't worry about how to drive a car anymore.
Exactly.
And can hold a conversation.
Right.
But yeah, you know, being in the flow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I totally interrupted you.
No, I enjoy what you're sharing. I feel like we could have so many side conversations.
Totally. Yeah.
Being in the flow is our birthright, and it is what we came here to do. We are creators. And so...
And just a skin suit, literally. Yeah. And once we realize, like, that if we're in the flow, if we can be in a place of receptivity, that we truly are so unique. Like there is no one like you. There is no one like me. But, you know, getting out of our own way to allow that expression to move through us.
can change the world.
Totally.
Think about your most favorite musicians,
I know.
your most favorite songs,
I know.
poets, all of it.
I
Wow.
know.
I would
Yeah.
not be here today if it weren't for all of that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah.
I really feel like as a society, we have devalued the healing arts so much, and it feels like there's like a renaissance of that coming back, and I'm so pumped about it.
Oh, the node's changing, right?
Well, we are in Pisces.
Yeah.
So we're all getting creative.
I think there's going to be a lot of awakening too.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's finally going to be some powerful, profound awakening. The stuff that you and I have been kind of waiting for humanity to evolve to. That's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see people wake up to their circumstances.
Yeah, just got the chills. It's it's been happening, and it's just gonna keep happening more and more
in waves as things get as things get more split, right? As the third dimension becomes even more complicated to continue to live in that vibration, right? It's a conscious choice, but to live in that low frequency, we're gonna see more people hopefully wake up and choose differently.
It's such dense energy that we have in this 3D world.
And it feels like almost like a brick wall. Like it feels like
For sure.
all contracts have just ended and people are just kind of like hovering.
For sure.
I'm afraid to do anything else. Yeah.
And unfortunately, what happens most time is that people do hit a rock bottom. Like me. And possibly you.
Oh, several times.
Yeah.
Not just once.
Like it's like constantly hitting my head against the wall. I'm like,
just dropping myself in the pit of Mordor. I mean, I am a Scorpio, so I have reinvented myself many times, started over. I would say that has been the biggest profound shifts. When I know that something big is coming when everything falls away.
For sure.
That has usually been like the huge turning point in my life where I was headed one direction and the universe is like, nope. You're about to go off a cliff. Not that direction. Did you not see the construction sites? Oh, you didn't? Okay, well, here, you're going to stop. I'm going to pull everything away from you so you wake up. Yeah.
You don't get what you want, but you get what you need.
You do eventually get what you want.
Right, but in that moment.
You don't always get it in the form that you thought you would get it in. The universe never really says no. It says not yet, or maybe, or try again. Yeah. I could try again a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice try. That was a good try, Andrea. Aim for a little bit more next time. Yeah, is usually what I get. You're thinking a little small there. Okay. What do your friends most appreciate about you?
Well, it's interesting. As a vulnerable side note, I actually just ended a friendship with one of my friends that I've been friends with for 20 years.
You just did?
Friday, yeah. Well, I didn't choose. It was her choosing, kind of. And then I went ahead and say, well, that's just, like, if we're going to pussyfoot around it, let's just cut the cord already. Like what's the point in like keeping the door halfway open?
Yeah.
So it wasn't by my choice, but it ended up being by my choice. Eventually.
Yeah.
And
gosh, I've had a lot of those this year.
Yeah.
Like 6, not 20-year friendships, but long-standing relationships.
Yeah.
Major relationships in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't need to get into the weeds of it. And when I'm realizing about the friendships that I'm surrounded by right now, I feel like really appreciate my vulnerability, my communication levels, my authenticity. And honestly, I'll just pride myself on just being your number one cheerleader.
Oh, really?
Whatever you are going for, whatever your heart's desire, whatever you feel like it is, you know, your most passionate project or life's path or whatever, I will just be with you, cheering you on every step of the way, because I want to see you happy and to see you succeed.
Same.
And I don't feel like this is my feeling, maybe this will change, but I don't feel like I was getting that from some of the friends that I was giving that to.
Yeah.
And that can be disappointing.
Yes.
And shows me a lot about also who I want in my life.
Or who you were choosing.
Yeah.
And that person has evolved.
Yeah.
You have evolved, right? Kind of like when I was referring to, you know, I know something huge is going to happen when everything gets pulled away. I have a little more experience in that just because I'm older than you. It's happened more times. And so I'm like, oh, it's happening again. But, you know, I always attribute it to a huge up-leveling in consciousness. Like, it's like, okay, well, that version of me 20 years ago was a very different person choosing very different friends. And it's amazing that that relationship has stood the test of time and we've stayed in each other's lives. We've still had things in common. But ultimately, I mean, if things were, gosh, I mean, I don't even know what to say about 2024, but I feel like if anything made it through 2024, it's here to last. But anything that fell away in 2024, like, it was hanging by a tendril at that point anyway, right? It's like that version of you doesn't exist anymore.
Totally. Yeah, and I will say, so
The one that was holding on to that. Maybe that relationship comes around into something new.
For sure.
But it had to change.
For sure.
Yeah, it
In
had to
order
change.
if it
that
wants
way
to.
had to
Yes.
change. And whatever parallel timeline to that, you know, should you choose it again, yes. But
For sure.
But you've changed too much in this past year.
I couldn't agree more. And, you know, you shared about how, like, you know, things are going to change when, like, everything is taken away. The funny thing is I was feeling, like, bouts of grief a couple of weeks before
It even happened.
she contacted me, and I knew.
Yeah.
And that is not the first time that has happened. I was
Yeah.
like, something's
coming.
something's happening, something's up, something's bubbling.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what it is, but my spidey senses detects it, and then it came, and I was like, oh. It was like,
I think it's the water because I always tell my daughter, I'm like, I'm always ahead. Like, I feel the full moon way before it comes. I feel the shifts in time, in planets. Like, I feel things so much more. The average person is just like, oh, it's a full moon. I'm like, yeah, you haven't noticed?
For a week.
Like, I've noticed for the last week. What are you talking about? My life is super on high volume right now.
For sure. I feel like I had my Saturn return when I was, 28 years old. And it was like 2 years before then when I had 2 or 3 years before then when I had my whole Dark Night of the Soul moment. And I was like, I'm totally experiencing it early.
Yes.
Because when I was 28 and I had my Saturn return, I was like, this is easy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. You've been an advocate for destigmatizing mental health, sexual abuse survivors, and domestic violence. What changes would you like to see in society regarding these issues?
Oh, everything. I mean, I don't know about you.
Sorry, I should not be laughing about those subjects, but your response, yeah.
So I'm just going to move this.
Please do.
There's so much coming out into the light right now about specific sexual abuse predators and all of that. And
trafficking.
Yes. And again, I knew this years ago.
Me too.
So I kind of find it interesting that it's happening now.
Me too.
And I don't believe that's a coincidence, as everything happens as it should.
Well, it's no different than UFOs. Nobody was ready to hear it before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's like, people have been recording this since the 40s. Like,
Hello.
yeah.
Yeah. And man, just the way in which things are normalized. It's just that simple. Someone gets sexually assaulted or abused or whatever it is, or even physically, and it's like, I just still don't think society at large takes it seriously.
No.
It's like it's almost become normalized. Or
of course that happened.
Yes.
Of course that happened. Or,
are you sure?
Or, well, you haven't healed enough. So, of course, that's where you are in your process of, choosing that, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's almost some blame, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like, this is my favorite. Why'd you stay?
I know. I'm like, go fuck yourself.
I'm like, I can't even with you.
Yeah.
Like, do you understand the dynamics of abuse at all? Or do you have empathy? Or how about this? Do you understand the chemical reaction that happens in your body with abuse? And then how to unprogram that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We just, magically were handed the tools when we hit our 20s, when we started dating, that all of a sudden we just undid all of that damage that our family handed over to us. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Sorry, that was my own little rant.
No, I enjoy your rants. Thank you. Keep it coming. And this doesn't need to just be about me. It's about the we. That's my Aquarius rising, at least.
Yes.
Sometimes I have trouble being like in the spotlight, so I enjoy sharing it, at least. Anyways, I feel like right now we are being called to get really, really honest about what's happening in society, in the world, in the collective, to a degree that I feel like, honestly, it's going to get pretty bad.
I know.
It's going to get bad. I mean, it's already bad. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm so grateful that I have already begun my process of writing my memoir, because I touch in a lot about my healing of sexual trauma. And again, it's like I knew it was like, it's like we know when what we're birthing is going to be ready for the world to receive it.
Yeah.
And it will be in a time like this.
Yep.
And so do I wish that this was not the truth? Absolutely. Am I so happy it's coming out into the light? Absolutely. Because if we want to change anything, it just has to.
We have to stop keeping it a secret.
Yeah. I know. And then like, even like the words rape or molestation or whatever, they're such taboo words. Like, oh, you saw this. And it's like,
It was shocking. It's shocking for people who don't want to see it. But it's no different than, I'm not correlating the two, but I'm using it as an analogy. It's no different than when there's a hurricane that runs through West Virginia and it didn't happen to you. So it's really easy to watch it on the news and then just kind of go back to your life. And then, same thing with the fires in LA right now. It's really easy if you're not living there to just be like, oh, well, that's really sad. And I'm going to donate some money. And then I'm just going to kind of go back to numbing myself in all the ways that I numb myself, because my life is, difficult or whatever it might be. But, I think it's very easy to tune out, because at this point, people are overwhelmed.
For sure.
Completely overwhelmed.
And I get that.
Me too.
I understand.
I'm not saying that that's okay.
Right.
I'm just saying that a lot of what people have been, people in general, I can't generalize, but if I were to generalize, people in general are so overwhelmed by the state of things, and they're not at a place, most are not at a place where they know how to even grieve.
That's why community is so important. And that's why
All of the things that we're losing.
Yes. That's why I feel like I've made part of my life's work of growing and expanding a community that if stuff happens like this, that we, like the tribes do, something happens, you come together and you heal together as like a community unit, as a tribe unit, you know? And I think in our Western world, we become so individuated, and I feel that's beautiful, and we all want to have our own, of course, way of living and being, and yet we're more separated and isolated now more than ever. And so how can we have groups of community to lean on, to share about these
Horrific.
I can't even. Yes, horrific's not like.
It's not even enough.
It's not even enough.
It's too hard to articulate.
It is. And so I think that's what's so important right now. And I understand.
People are in serious pain. And it's going to get significantly worse.
Yeah. And it's completely understandable. So I feel like we are going to be in a time where having a safe space for these emotions to be shared and felt and just be held is really important. And I really appreciate those like you and those that many people I know that you know have communities where people can come and heal and work on themselves and just come together in a time of great need.
I'm really grateful that I did the work. I'm not saying I'm done doing the work. I'm saying that I'm glad that I started when I did. I'm glad that I started when I did.
Yeah.
Because I feel very similar to COVID. When COVID came about, I remember everyone kept saying, "How are you doing?" And I would be like, I don't want to brag. I don't want to brag. This sounds a little egoistic, but I feel like I was prepared. I feel like I was prepared. Certainly it's not easy. Is it testing me? Absolutely. But other people around me have it much worse off than I do, and I feel like I'm prepared. And so right now I can't say I feel like I know everything, but I feel like I'm prepared. I feel like whatever's coming, I've been choosing to do the hard work around this for a while so that I'm more prepared for what is coming. For as much as I could prepare.
Yeah. Of course. And I felt the exact same way during COVID. I was like, I'm actually okay. And I don't even want to admit that.
Yeah.
Because it felt insensitive. I know. I'm like, oh.
I don't want to dare the universe to tighten to turn it up a notch for me by any means.
Still wasn't easy, but I wasn't like crumbling to pieces.
Yes.
Like I felt so many
good tools.
Yeah.
I had really good tools. I was very grateful for the tools that I had acquired up until that point. And it feels similar, right?
Yeah,
it feels very similar at this time. Okay. Checking the time. Okay, good. We still have time. Yay. How do you guide people toward more self-love, self-reflection, and spiritual connection in their lives?
Oh, I do it through so many ways. I would say I wear many hats, so I find my work sometimes challenging to talk about.
It is.
It is.
It's hard to articulate.
It is. It's because...
And it's hard for other people to understand.
Yes. Well, that's why I'm like, if you really want to know how a Psilocybin journey is or shamanic healing is, it's just like
you
go experience
do it.
Yeah.
You gotta do it. You gotta get over the fear and just do it.
Yeah. Like, don't try to get so intellectual about it. It's just like, it's all about being present with the experience. And I know that's really challenging with people if they have trust issues and trauma. And so, again, you know, meeting people with where they're at. And I'm someone that when I work with people, whether that's with plant medicine or shamanic healing or sound healing or all the other things that I do, I really just tune in to what's there in the present moment. And from that is what drives the journey forward. And so it's not, I don't have like a framework, a 1, 2, 3 step or whatever. And
It's personalized and individualized.
yeah, it is. And I can't predict. I mean,
I can't
I'm
either.
psychic, and I can't predict exactly what's going to happen because I put a lot of my trust into the mystery.
Me
I put a
too.
lot of my trust into spirit.
Me too.
As long as I'm there present, I know that magic will happen, healing will happen, in whatever the way it's wanting to manifest. And so for me, you know, I've worked with people now for years, or I've worked with maybe people for 3 to 6 months. It just depends upon what kind of help they're looking for and where they're at in their journey. And I feel like if I can empower the client to heal themselves the most, that is a huge win for me. And that doesn't mean not tending to them. That doesn't mean not doing healing work on them or for them at times, because I do actually believe sometimes that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot in which that I really try my best to, through, especially if we've been working together for a while, that the tools that then they learn, the intuition that they've built through our work together, that they then can unlock their own medicine, their own gifts to then heal themselves. And I'm just there as a guide and as a support person for them to do that work. And so that's a building over time, though, you know, like that just doesn't just happen in one session, but it happens, you know, months, years, over time, especially when trust and rapport is built. Mm-hmm. And I really love working with people for a longer amount of time because you can really track the progress. You can really, really see the results and the movements and the changes that happen. That sometimes if I just do a one healing session, you know, I don't really get to see, and that's okay. And I really love it. I love to see people thrive. I love to see people just come more into their own power and their own light.
You're not wanting somebody to have to be with you.
Right.
Long term, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like
be reliant on you for
exactly.
healing.
Yeah. You're not going to just come here and I'm going to just wave a wand and you're out the door, right? Yeah. It's a co-creation.
Of course. Yeah. So. And it's more powerful through the intention of both people wanting it, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I don't know about you, but I've gotten caught in working with somebody or, you know, client or two that really didn't want to be there. And it's like, it's very challenging.
Well, I was just saying the other day, like, I can't force healing on you. That's the biggest lesson I think that you learn becoming a Reiki practitioner, even at Reiki level 2. Well, Reiki level 1, you have to ask for permission in order to, like, it naturally teaches you boundaries. You can't force healing. You could want healing for your mom all you want, but you got to ask her permission if you're going to give her Reiki, and you got to explain what Reiki is and why you want to give it to her. And like trying to have that conversation, you first have to understand why it's so important. And then it starts to actually, you start to unravel and discover, like, why is it so important for me to make this happen for somebody else?
Right.
What is it in
for
me?
You?
What is it in me that's really, that's really
Exactly.
wanting this to happen, right? So there's this built-in introspection. But yes, you know, when you give someone Reiki, you're giving them Reiki, which is not your energy, right? It's source energy coming through you, but you're giving them Reiki, and it can only go where they will allow it to go. That means if the only thing that's open is their heart, you know, that's where it's going to go. If the only place that they're open is their knee because they're in a lot of pain and they finally are willing to try anything to make that knee stop hurting, that's where it's going to go. But if they are open to the entire experience, it will flow through their entire chakra system, right? So it will only go, like I tell people this all the time, like I can't make anything happen for you if you don't want it. It's, you know, we could pull beliefs from your energetic layer And you could walk out here and start thinking the exact same thing if you have chosen not to be done with that, or you choose to go back to that relationship, or you choose to recreate that pattern. I could pull it out of you all I want, but ultimately you're just going to keep recreating it. So it's like trying to force, it's trying to force somebody to go to rehab. It's no different. It's like you could do an intervention and really want that person to quit, but if it doesn't come from them, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Very unlikely, unless somebody's made a conscious choice. And sometimes, like you said, you have to be in the pit of Mordor. I love that phrase. There's a tarot reader that I follow on YouTube that uses that all the time. And he's always like, Scorpio, where have you been? Are you in the pit of Mordor right now? So, you really have to hit rock bottom, so to speak, where everything's stripped away. And you can't get away from the truth. You can't get away from it. You can't sidetrack yourself. You can't distract yourself anymore. You can't numb the pain the ways that you were numbing it aren't working. And it gets so loud that you have no choice but to shift. And yeah, it's unfortunate that sometimes it comes to that. Like, it'd be great if we all listened to it, the first 2-3 times when it was a little bit softer, but sometimes it takes a good smack in the face before people are like, oh, okay, I'm open. I'm really open. I will try anything to make this happen. I will try anything.
Even that woo-woo shit.
Yeah, I'll even try some woo-woo stuff. I speak from my own experience. Like I definitely had some disbelief. And I had some disbelief around even my own gifts when people would tell me that it was written all over me. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I was so detached from it. And I took advantage of the fact that I thought, well, it doesn't sound like you had anybody around you either to explain it to you, but I thought that a lot of the things that I was doing wasn't special or unique because we're programmed to believe that psychics have a turban and have a velvet tablecloth and, travel in a wagon like in The Wizard of Oz and like just show up in random spots and like people go to them for a reading and they see magical things in a crystal ball that no one else can see. And like I was programmed to believe like someone's special. Someone very special. Not that I didn't think I was special. Well, okay, we won't get into that. But the point is someone very special and uniquely gifted in some way that I can't possibly even fathom or imagine is able to do that. And I'm not capable of doing that. So all of the things that I was doing, I was just like, oh, well, everyone does this. Everyone, has just random phrases come into their head and they're like, wait, what did you just say? That wasn't me. That was actually not me. Where did that come from? Like, I just thought that we were all able to do that. And so I won't say I took it for granted, but it was other people's reflection of them saying, wait, how did you know that? Or wait, like it was other people consistently reinforming me that no, that's actually unique. Most people have shut that off.
Those are your real life guardian angels that got to remind you of those. Because that's like, that's a big deal that they pointed it out. You know?
Yes. And they were the healers, right? They were the medicine people that I worked with, or they were some friends that I developed along the way as I started to get further in my journey of developing my business and developing the community that I have around me. But initially at the beginning, it was really the teachers and the healers that I was going to that really helped me see that was unusual, that I hadn't shut it off. Somehow I had not shut it off. I was maybe disconnected from what it looked like or what it felt like, or that it was unusual and unusual, special in some way, or unique to me. But that anybody could do it. That was the great thing, is realizing, going through different modalities of training and recognizing like, no, this isn't necessarily some magical thing that only certain people can do. We can all do it. It's just whether or not we want to stay connected to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see. If you could give one piece of advice to someone beginning their healing journey, what would it be?
The only way out of the darkness is through.
Tell us more about that. What does that look like?
Well, I feel like, say, a symptom of depression comes. Someone has an anxiety attack. Someone feels hopeless and lost on their path, or confused about their life or their relationship or anything. You know, something in their life just doesn't feel aligned, and they have a challenging time with that. We kind of touched on it today, is, you know, you can't really turn away from it if you really want to know the truth. And so you have to go towards it. You have to lean into it, whether it is the confusion, the anxiety, the depression, the disconnection in your relationship, the father wound, whatever. You have to be willing to look inside of that seemingly fearful, scary void of darkness in order for you to really come through and see the truth, the wisdom, the light, the healing, the thing that's beyond the veil, the thing that's beyond the illusion of what the story you might be creating about it in your head is.
You got to open up the coat closet where you've shoved all of the stuff in the closet, or you got to be willing to go in there and sift through it.
Yeah. And just really be with it and just
sit through the memories.
Yeah. And, you know, what I love about plant medicine, psilocybin, ayahuasca experiences is that it always teaches me that no matter how challenging it gets, it's only temporary. And so it's the same thing with sifting through the coat closet or going into the void of the confusion or the disconnection. It's like, it's only temporary. You will make it out, and you're going to be so happy that you allowed yourself to go through that in order to get to the other side. And that's where growth happens.
Yes, finally letting yourself see it and feel it.
And surrender to it.
Witnessing. Yeah. What do you wish more people understood about the power of self-healing and spiritual connection?
Oh, I would say that it's not as like woo-woo as people think it is. It's actually more real than anything else in the world. And we've been taught to believe the opposite, because if we believe the opposite, then our power is not as strong. And who doesn't want our power to be as strong? Well, the powers that be. So,
yeah. What legacy do you hope to leave as a healer, artist, and advocate for human evolution?
Ooh. Yeah, it makes me tear up. Wow. This is a hard question to answer. I think just because I have many things I wish to leave behind. But maybe if I had to choose one thing, it would be you are not the victim of the pain from your ancestral lineage. You are the one chosen to heal and to survive and to empower yourself through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are the transitional character.
Mm-hmm.
You have free will.
Yeah.
You could choose not to be,
Yes.
but then you just keep passing it on.
Yeah. Right. So choose wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And with care and consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Because it impacts you greatly.
And the world.
And the world.
Yeah.
And the world.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with that, Christine Marie and I are doing 2 retreats this year. I'm doing 6 retreats in total, 2 online, 2 in person in Portland, just me. More details can be found on my website. And 2 this summer in August and November, doing the Phoenix Immersion retreat for anyone listening with Christine Marie on August 29th, 30th, and 31st, and November 28th, 29th, and 30th. And if you loved hearing Christine Marie's story, if you want the opportunity to work with her and I highly recommend that you schedule a 15-minute call with me. More details again below in the show notes, or go to andrea.love.com. More information about Christine Marie, both on my social media, on hers. We'll include some links for your website too, and a bio. For anyone who's interested to know more about her, thank you so much for joining me. Like you said, at one point, this conversation could have gone 30 different directions, and it's hard to keep it succinct in an hour and a half, but we did it!
We did it! Thank you!
And it was so exciting to have you here. I've been looking forward to it, and I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for everything that you shared and the wisdom that you've accumulated and then give so graciously and generously. So I see that in you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Andrea. It's
You're
a pleasure
welcome.
to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. Your presence here means the world to me, and I'm truly grateful for your time and energy. If this conversation resonated with you or sparked any questions, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from each of you. Your insights, experiences, and curiosities always enrich this space. It's important to remember that trauma, often unseen and unacknowledged, can keep us from living fully in our joy. Through my intuitive healing process, I help release the weight of generational trauma, empowering you to reconnect with your true self and experience life in greater harmony. If you feel called to explore this deeper work, I invite you to book a one-on-one intuitive session, or even embark on a personalized journey with the Phoenix Immersion, a 2-day retreat designed to support profound transformation. You can find all the details below. For those who've liked, subscribed, or left comments already, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your engagement means everything, and I'm deeply grateful for the connection we're building in this community. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm excited for all the healing and transformation we'll continue to explore together. As always, I'm forever grateful for you, and I cannot wait to see what unfolds next. Take care, and until next time.